promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Lagos. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM. First, our top stories. Malian armed forces reclaim Labezanga border with Niger, restoring security and trade. Public frustration grows over rift between Senegalese President Diomaye Faye and Prime Minister Sonko.
To be honest, I'm disappointed. We haven't seen any real progress.
If Diomaye has decided to dismiss Ousmane Sonko, it will be a bad sign.
World Bank unveils regional plan to strengthen health systems in West and Central Africa.
As the World Bank Group, we have set a target of reaching 1.5 billion people with better health care and reaching 200 million people in this sub-region.
Liberia imposes fines on mining companies for environmental damage. Please stay tuned for the details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Veronique Joy.
Many thanks for joining us. The Malian armed forces have regained control of the strategic Labezanga border post, a key crossing point on the Gao-Niamey corridor. This operation follows several days of coordinated military action aimed at securing the area, restoring the flow of goods and people. Authorities say the move is critical for protecting local populations who have faced repeated attacks and growing insecurity. Augustine Coley reports.
According to military sources, the offensive combined targeted airstrikes with ground operations designed to dismantle armed groups linked to the Islamic State in the Sahel and Al-Qaeda affiliates. Surveillance drones were also deployed, and the mission was carried out in coordination with neighboring Nigerian forces, underscoring a regional effort to combat cross-border threats. Before the recent violence, Labazanga saw hundreds of vehicles pass through daily, transporting essential supplies such as food, fuel, and manufactured goods. Repeated ambushes and racketeering incidents, particularly during attacks in 2023 and 2024, brought trade and mobility to a near standstill. Located in northern Mali, near the borders with Niger and Burkina Faso, Labizanga plays a crucial role in both economic activity and regional security. Its control allows authorities to monitor the movement of people and goods in an area frequently targeted by armed groups. For now, the focus remains on maintaining security and ensuring that this vital corridor can once again support the economic lifeline of the region.
That was Augustine Coley with that report. In neighboring Burkina Faso, the transitional authorities have suspended TV5 Monde from broadcasting in the country. The decision was made by the High Council for Communication, which accuses the international channel of shortcomings in its reporting on security issues in countries within the Economic and Social Affairs Group, ESA. The move marks the latest tensions between media regulators and foreign broadcasters operating in the region. Christopher Teacher tells us more.
After April and June 2024, the TV5 Monday television channel has once again been suspended in Burkina Faso. The decision by the High Council for Communication took effect on Tuesday, May 5, without specifying a time frame. The CSC states that it has observed numerous breaches of the law, ethics, and professional standards in coverage of topics related to the fight against terrorism in Burkina Faso and news concerning the terrorist attacks that occurred on April 25, 2026 in Mali. The media regulatory body accuses the French television channel of spreading disinformation and glorifying terrorism, as noted in several news broadcasts, particularly during April and early May. In Burkina Faso, other French media outlets have also been suspended for several years, including RFI, France 24, and Libération. Radio France International frequency 94.0 has even been allocated to the new AES radio station located in the Burkinabe capital.
That was a report by our Ouagadougou correspondent Martin Kaba, presented by Christopher Aticho. Now, here in Senegal, a political split at the highest levels of government appears complete. What began as rumors has turned into confirmed upheaval, marked by the dismissal of the presidential spokesperson, a prominent figure within the ruling PASTEF party. The move follows sharp criticisms from President Bassirou Diomaye Faye about the direction of his own political group. For many observers, the alliance between the president and Prime Minister Sonko has broken, and the race for the 2029 presidential election is on the way. Meanwhile, frustration is growing among Senegalese citizens who are still waiting to see tangible results from past promises. Abdullahi Hassan tells us more.
On the streets of Dakar, the dispute between President Diomaye Faye and Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko is a hot topic. 2 years after coming to power, the two leaders are no longer on good terms. Digital campaigns for 2029 presidential election are now emerging. Amid disappointment and warnings, Senegalese citizens are sharing their opinions on the rift at the highest levels of government.
To be honest, I'm disappointed. After 2 years in power, we haven't really seen any real progress. They need to put their differences aside and focus on the current situation in the country.
We've been waiting for them to govern together with complete honesty. If Diomaye has decided to dismiss Ousmane Sonko, it will be a bad sign because Ousmane Sonko is doing remarkable work within the government.
As a young Senegalese person, I've noticed that since they arrived, Senegal hasn't progressed. They promised us many things, but we haven't seen any progress.
The civil society sector is playing a monitoring role and closely following the situation. However, it is proposing solutions to prevent further tensions. Sheikh Tijan Sise is a member of the Senegalese civil society.
We regret to see that the entire project they presented to us has been reduced to nothing. What we see now are more political ambitions than actual projects to address economic and social problems. As a civil society actor, we don't get involved directly, but we are here to monitor the proper functioning of institutions and ensure respect for democratic principles.
It should be noted that on Monday, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye dismissed the presidency spokesperson Ousseynou Ly, who was in charge of PASTEF Medina, a working-class neighborhood in Dakar. This decision was poorly received by members of the political party led by Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko.
That was Abdullahi Hassan with that report.
This is breaking news.
Breaking news.
News just coming in says Reporters Without Borders is calling for the release of journalist Ataina Serk Elon, who is being held by the authorities in Burkina Faso. He was allegedly sent to the front line. In fact, he has been held in a villa converted into a secret prison. But RSF says it believes that the journalist is neither on the front line nor in detention. Sadibou Marong is RSF Regional Director for West and Central Africa.
Yes, I mean, we are in a situation where, faced with the lack of information from the Burkina Faso authorities, RSF has investigated for several months into the fate of Achana Serge Oulon. He was allegedly sent to the front line, and in fact, he has been being held in a villa converted into a secret prison. But we believe that this journalist belongs neither, his place is neither on the front line nor in detention. We also believe that he has been detained and abused in a very difficult conditions. His place is not in prison, but we are calling for his release as quickly as possible. According to our information, Achana Serge Oulon has been, subjected to abuse. He has lost weight. He has also been beaten, and is being detained in degrading condition. And given his conditions, it seems all the more unlikely to us that he could be fighting on the front line. The information we have gathered confirms his detention there in that villa in Ouagadougou up to the end of 2025. He has still not been released, and nothing suggests that his condition have improved.
That was Sadibou Marang, Director for RSF West and Central Africa, speaking on the situation of Athéna Serge Oulon.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Elsewhere in Liberia, some major mining companies are facing financial penalties for environmental violations. The fines were announced on Tuesday by the Environmental Protection Agency following findings of serious breaches and ecological damage across multiple countries. Authorities say the move is part of broader efforts to enforce environmental regulations, protect water resources, and address the growing impact of industrial mining on communities and ecosystems. WADR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
According to the EPA's Executive Director Emmanuel Yakpaglo, the decision reflects increased regulatory pressure on extractive companies to meet national environmental standards and to restore damaged sites. In Nimar County, Aslamenta, Liberia was fined $125,000 for a pollution incident and failure to report it within the mandatory 72-hour period. In Grand Kitmount County, Mountain Mining Corporation was penalized for unauthorized sand mining in the Lofa River with a $50,000 fine and a $20,000 monitoring fee. Elsewhere in Bong County, Chanan Union received a $30,000 fine with a $20,000 restoration monitoring fee after laboratory tests confirmed environmental violations, including the discharge of untreated wastewater and contamination of surface and groundwater resources.
Failure to comply will lead to additional regulatory actions, penalties, enforcement actions, or suspension measures under the environmental law. We is not acting against investment. We are acting in defense of the environment, communities, and the law.
The EPA's investigative report also extended to Wapulu County, where Nokete Ira Mining Company was shut down and found $3,000 after being found operating without a valid permit and causing environmental risks to nearby communities. The Environmental Protection Agency says the enforcement actions form part of a broader effort to ensure accountability in Liberia's mining sector and to prevent further environmental violations linked to industrial activities. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Meanwhile, in the Gambia, the government reveals a national plan to address growing threats of climate change while supporting economic growth. The policy document, developed with support from the World Bank, was presented on Tuesday at a ceremony attended by senior officials, development partners, and environmental stakeholders. According to authorities, the initiative is in response to increasing climate pressures facing the country. From Banjul, Sang Donald Mendy reports.
The Country Climate and Development Report, or CCDR, sets out a roadmap for addressing climate vulnerability while supporting long-term development. It highlights that the Gambia remains highly exposed to climate shocks, particularly floods and droughts, which continue to threaten livelihoods and infrastructure. The report places emphasis on building resilience, creating climate-smart jobs, and aligning investments with sustainable growth priorities. Speaking at the unveiling ceremony, Vice President Mohamed Jallow said the report underscores the urgency for coordinated national action.
We must also address the critical gap between policy ambition and implementation. The Gambia has one of the most progressive climate policy frameworks in the region. However, the challenge now lies in execution by translating policies and plans into tangible results that improve life, noting that our most urgent priorities is the protection of Banjul.
The Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, Sidi Keita, warns that climate change is already affecting economic stability.
Climate change affects our economy through multiple channels, reducing agricultural productivity, lowering labor productivity due to heat stress, damaging infrastructure, and disrupting key sectors such as tourism.
World Bank representative Franklin Mutahakana describes the report as timely and critical in guiding future investments.
The CDR is not just a report. It's a roadmap for action. It provides a clear framework to scale up climate-aligned investment, mobilize private capital, and ensure that climate action translates into resilience.
According to officials, the challenge will be implementation, turning the report's recommendations into concrete action as climate pressures continue to mount. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sanglana Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM, Dakar, and online at wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Malian armed forces reclaim Labezanga border with Niger, restoring security and trade. Public frustration grows over rift between Senegalese President Diomaye Faye and Prime Minister Sonko. World Bank unveils regional plan to strengthen health systems in West and Central Africa. Liberia imposes fines on mining companies for environmental damage. Still ahead in the news, we have press review, guest interview, and sports news. Stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Thank you for staying with us. Now we head to Ghana, where the World Bank unveiled a new regional strategy aimed at strengthening health systems in West and Central Africa. The initiative is titled Fit to Prosper, Investing in Health for Jobs and Development. It comes amid health challenges in the region, which accounts for a significant share of global deaths in children, maternal and malaria-related complications. The policy aims to help countries align policies and make more effective investments in health despite limited resources. WADR's Nadide Tete reports from Accra.
The strategy promotes local production of essential medicines, stronger emergency preparedness, and expanded access to care, while aligning with continental efforts to improve health financing and achieve universal health coverage. It comes as countries across the region grapple with rising demand for healthcare due to rapid population growth, disease outbreaks, and climate pressures, even as funding becomes more limited. World Bank Vice President for People, Mamta Murthy, says the region still bears a disproportionate share of global health challenges, including high maternal and child mortality and malaria deaths, with serious consequences for economic development. She notes that with millions of children expected to be born in the region by 2050, investing in health now is essential to building a productive future workforce.
As the World Bank Group, we have set a target of reaching 1.5 billion people with more and better health care, and reaching 200 million people in this sub-region. And when we look across sub-Saharan Africa, reaching 400 million people with more and better health services.
Ghana's Health Minister Kwabena Mintah Kando is urging stakeholders to ensure the strategy translates into visible improvement in communities, healthcare facilities, and household livelihoods.
It is our view that the development support achieves its greatest impact when it's aligned with national priorities, coordinated around country systems, and measured by the difference it makes in the lives of people.
The World Bank says stronger collaboration and sustained investment will be key to delivering results and improving health outcomes across West and Central Africa. For WADR, Nadidi Teti, Accra.
In Nigeria, the National Assembly has set up an ad hoc committee to visit South Africa later this month in response to a growing wave of xenophobic attacks against Nigerians and other foreign nationals. The move comes amid rising diplomatic concern and mounting calls for stronger action to protect citizens abroad. The issue has drawn regional attention, with Ghana recently engaging South African authorities over a similar incident involving one of its nationals, sparking widespread reactions on social media. Our Abuja correspondent Yechenu Sasitu reports.
Lawmakers say the ad hoc committee will engage South African authorities and relevant stakeholders to address the growing concerns over xenophobia and ensure the safety of Nigerians in the country. Delegates are also expected to assess the situation on the ground and strengthen bilateral relations between the two nations. Senator Adams Oshomole calls for decisive action, warning that continued attacks on Nigerians abroad must not be ignored.
We must revoke the license of MTN, revoke the license of DSTV as an indication of our seriousness. Those people who have died, their life is much more than foreign investment.
President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, also emphasizes the importance of protecting Nigerian citizens, noting that the National Assembly will continue to engage diplomatically to address the situation.
Not the action of revoking any license. We are not going to touch any business of South Africa, and we won't touch the business of any country. We believe strongly that with diplomatic engagements, these issues will be resolved. But at the same time, we demand justice for those who have been killed. What has been done is unacceptable, not just to Nigerians, but to the international community.
The development comes amid ongoing diplomatic efforts by the federal government following recent incidents involving Nigerians in South Africa. The South African government has condemned the attacks on foreigners and promised to investigate the act. For WADR, Yechenu Sasitu in Abuja.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
For the press review this afternoon, let's join Sang Donald Mendy all the way in Banjul.
We begin with Foreign newspaper, which leads with a key story reporting that Attorney General requests police to file after coroner's inquest links Omar Baji's death to assault. The Attorney General's chambers and the Ministry of Justice has confirmed it has received the coroner's inquest report into the death of Omar Baji, who died after an encounter with law enforcement officers in Mandinari in September 2025, as pressure intensifies from community youths demanding urgent government action. Labour Union decries unfair dismissals on paid wages. The country's Labour Union has raised alarm over what it describes as a growing pattern of unfair dismissals and persistent non-payment of wages across several sectors. Let's now turn our attention to the Standard newspaper and what it is reporting this morning. According to the Standard, IEC registration supervisor resigned over alleged intimidation. Voter registration has reportedly been halted in Jara West, Lower River region after an official from the Independent Electoral Commission allegedly resigned over concern about undocumented applicants. And Sidin Jai, a member of the National People's Party, claims he once declined Dabo's invitation to join the United Democratic Party. And finally, we make our last stop at the Point newspaper. This morning, the Point reports that Speaker of the National Assembly, Fabakary Tombong Jatta, calls for stronger regional unity as ECOWAS Parliament. And that does it for this edition of Press Review. Back to you in the studios.
That was Sang Donald Mendy with the Press Review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
For our guest interview, we focus on Mauritania, where 2 members of parliament have been sentenced to 4 years in prison. Gamouakour and Mam Sheikh Jeng were found guilty of disseminating content that undermines national symbols and social cohesions, as well as defamation, threats, and incitement of violence. However, the opposition denounces a violation of the 2 members of parliament's rights and points out that they were tried without the lifting of their parliamentary immunity. Kali Jallo, a Mauritanian opposition member of parliament, joins us with his reaction.
In Mauritania today, the government can, without following legal procedures, remove members of parliament from office, imprison them, and even detain them without lifting their parliamentary immunity. The 2 MPs Marian Abadian and Hamua Acho were targeted a few months ago by a procedure to lift their parliamentary immunity, which was unsuccessful. The Mauritanian system of injustice then exploited this illegality to characterize their situation as flagrant offences, a claim systemically refuted by the team of lawyers who defended them at the trial I attended. And today, the Mauritanian justice system has clearly stated that their parliamentary immunity must be lifted, which has not been done. So how can one conceive of a 4-year prison sentence when the MP's parliamentary immunity has not been lifted? The reality lies elsewhere. These MPs are a thorn in the side of the system, a thorn in the side of a Mauritanian government, and now they are being silenced. But once again, no one will silence us because freedom of expression, protected by law, is guaranteed by the Constitution of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania.
He is still being criticized for posting content on social media that undermines national and social cohesion. Couldn't this be considered a clear case of a flagrant offense?
In reality, that's not the truth. The truth is that today, there's a sword of Damocles hanging over the heads of all Mauritanian members of parliament, namely the law of symbols. This law of symbols is the most retrograde law we have in our country, which doesn't allow any citizen or even members of parliament the freedom to criticize the actions of the government or the president of the republic. And it's through this channel that the flagrant offense was seized. But the reality is that Marian and Kameli did live broadcasts on Facebook in the morning and were arrested at 11 p.m. or even midnight in their home. And the lawyers and legal experts have clearly shown that there was no flagrant offense in this case.
So let's talk about legislation. What are you putting forward to better protect dissenting voices and members of parliament like yourselves?
Mauritanian members of parliament are already protected by the Constitution of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania. The Constitution guarantees them parliamentary immunity, allowing them to voice the people's demands in the assembly. The internal regulations do the same. The issue isn't one of legislation nor of law. It's a problem of law enforcement. When opposition members are targeted because they are disruptive, because what they say doesn't necessarily please those who govern us, well, they suffer the consequences. Once again, the ball is in the court of the government, which must guarantee independence between the executive and legislative branches so that members of parliament can do their job.
The questioning of these two members of parliament stemmed from allegations of slavery. It must be said that slavery by descent was criminalized in 2007 and 2015, but cases are still being reported in some places. So where does the problem lie?
The reality is that these MPs, through their movement called ERA, did not mobilize for a proven case of slavery in front of the Taniam police station. This did not go unnoticed, and they also raised their voices against slavery within the assembly, within the Mauritanian parliament. So, while Mauritania has numerous laws criminalizing slavery, the reality is quite different. The reality lies elsewhere. There are still cases of slavery pending before the courts that have never been prosecuted.
That was Kali Jallo, a Mauritanian opposition member of parliament. It's now time for some sports news, and in sports, things are taking shape for the third window of the 2027 FIBA Basket World Cup qualifiers. FIBA has announced the host countries for the third window, all in Africa. Cameroon, Angola and Senegal will have the opportunity to play in front of their home crowds. The third window of the 2027 FIBA Basketball World Cup qualifiers takes place from July 2nd to 5th, 2026. Arsenal have booked their place in the UEFA Champions League final for the first time in 2 decades, following a narrow 1-0 victory over Atletico Madrid Tuesday evening. The result secured a 2-1 aggregate victory for the Gunners, and that's all for sports news. And that's how we wrap it up on Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maudo Ju for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English. I am Veronique Njai. Good afternoon.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Baft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM